Hi, are you at a boarding school? Have you struggled with how to market your boarding school? Well, in today's episode of the School Marketing Mashup, we're going to talk about ideas to market your boarding school. So my name is Brendan Schneider. I'm at Schneider B Media, and this guy over here is Jonathan Oleisky, who is my friend at Kalix Marketing Group. Jonathan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Brendan. We're all back from Thanksgiving break, which I think is a really good segue because my sense is a lot of boarding schools around the country right now are still on break. It's a travel day, right? Your students are just coming back.
Yeah, I'm
They're
looking at the date.
flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at the date. And look, both of you and I have been super lucky in our lifetimes. We've lived at boarding schools with our families. We've raised children there. We've experienced dorm life, living on campus. And I think to your question, marketing a boarding school is just a little bit different. And the biggest thing that comes to my mind is it's about storytelling, right? How do you tell the story of articulating the why and the value proposition of why a student should say, I'm going to spend hopefully 4 years, right, at a boarding
Yeah.
school, high school,
Mhm. Yeah.
and why should the family make the investment?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And not only did I live on campus for 12 years, I'm a boarding school graduate, so I was on the other side as well.
I didn't know
Uh,
that.
yeah, and then I had the
Congratulations.
thank you, I survived, and I had the unique combination of going back to work at the boarding school where I was a student. But
Wow,
that's for another show.
that definitely. We'll have to unpack that one. Our two daughters came home from the hospital and spent their first 10 and 12 years in a faculty apartment in the dorm. So
That's
that
great.
will definitely be another show.
That's
But
great.
one thing that does come to mind, and I think it's so important, especially for that high school boarding experience, I think it's incumbent upon the schools to put the current boarding students front and center as part of that storytelling. Because, you know, if you're an incoming eighth grader or you're a transfer student, you're coming in, say, 10, 11, 12 for some
Yeah,
reason,
yeah,
you want to hear from your peers, right?
yeah. It
You know,
Go ahead, sorry, go.
no. And something just came to mind. I remember years ago when one of our daughters was looking at colleges, looked at a small liberal arts college, and they actually were super organized. This was just as blogs were coming online, and they divided the prospective students that year and assigned them a different senior to follow their blog through the course of the year. And I thought that was
Ah.
brilliant. Why don't we do that at our boarding schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great idea. For me, as I think about boarding school and working at a boarding school and doing admission work there, uh, a number of things come to mind. The first was that it's a little unique that you're trying to attract the student and the parent. Because I think in my case, my parents didn't know boarding school. I drove the train. I
Yeah,
wore my parents down to go.
interesting.
It's a long story, but you're really creating content or trying to attract the parent and the child, I think.
Mhm.
The other thing for me that I can only get with having perspective and time is that one, going from a boarding school to a day school, seeing that difference was huge.
Mhm.
Both academically great, but it's all those other things that I didn't realize that boarding school does for students that you can only experience or know when you look at that in comparison. So I think it's important for schools to compare against your real competitors,
Yeah.
understand that. And the other experience I had is having, and maybe you had this too, having what was a little different, having my son be at the day school I was at, graduate and go to college. He's a freshman this year, and seeing where he is in that college preparation versus where I was after graduating from boarding school.
Yeah.
And night and day, night and day.
Absolutely. No. What a great observation. No. And I think what boarding schools do is they take young adults, young children, and they help them flourish. They help them find their areas of expertise, their passions, and I think they do it really well. I see your question up there. What types of
Yeah,
storytelling tactics should you engage in? Video is going to be key, right?
yeah,
How do you
yeah.
get the prospective student and parent into the dorm room, right? How do you get them into the dining hall? Was school I saw recently that is a girls' school, boarding school that has riding. Their video has a horse with a rider on it in a classroom. I love it, right?
That's great. That's
I
great.
mean, but talk about positioning and saying, what is that? In 15 seconds, what does that video say? It's
Yeah.
like, wow, I can ride my horse in that classroom too.
Yeah. Well, when I think of this question, Jonathan, for me, it's video, which I say understanding that video is difficult. And most importantly for
Yeah,
me is whatever a school chooses to do, it's the long game. This isn't
yeah,
about one post or one campaign.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
again and again and again.
yeah,
And that's the hard part. And I say that it rolls off my tongue in 5 seconds. It's really hard. And
yeah,
schools that can be consistent and show up with that campaign video, is it every day? Is it every week? But if
yeah.
you can be consistent, you'll be more successful.
No, it's the constant. I remember a good friend of mine who was a director of admission at several boarding schools who said to me that, breaking into a new country market is a multi-year endeavor.
Oh yeah.
It's not going
Yeah.
to happen instantly. Well, I
Yeah.
know we have time for just one more question here. Why,
Yeah.
why, why don't you jump in there first?
Yeah, this is pretty obvious, right? Tuition's higher, it's much higher. And then
Yeah,
how can you clearly articulate the value proposition? The two things that come to mind here, one, for me, in terms of a tactic, it really goes back to that second question, video. Video just feels more expensive.
yeah,
It just feels, it raises the level, in my opinion. The other thing for me is that, and I've seen schools struggle with this, what is their value proposition? So
hmm,
before you can clearly articulate it, you have to understand what your value proposition is.
yeah,
And even more importantly, I mean, this is the work that you do, so I'm preaching to the choir.
yeah.
It's it has to resonate across campus and not just come either top down or out of the marketing department. What do you think, John?
And the word that comes to mind is authentic, right? Your engagement, your communication has to be authentic. Families are paying upwards of $75,000 a year for the boarding school experience for their child, and they want to get a sense of what is that whole community like? How's the community going to envelop my child, nurture them, mentor them, call them out when they need it, hold
Yeah.
them accountable, and help them become an amazing adult when they leave that boarding school.
I do. Right before we break here, we do have one comment.
Great.
Uh, Peter Barron here. Totally agree. As a boarding school alum, the 24/7 experience changed my life. Having a structured schedule from early. So this is really, the value of it and showing that. And then, oh, he followed up too. Must have been yours. I see
Yeah.
too many schools. Yeah. Who, again, what's your value prop? Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah, no, Peter, I think that's really well said. Well, Brendan, I think we are out of time for this month, and we want to welcome all of our viewers to join us every month. Perhaps next month, as we hit December and the end of the year, let's think about kind of some retrospective, how what we've learned this past year in the independent school marketing space, and what can we take into 2023.
Jonathan, that sounds great. And if you're watching this live or watching the recording, please share your thoughts below in the comments. We would love to hear. If you agree with us, even if you disagree with us, we would love to hear it. So, Jonathan, until next month, thank you.
All right, Brendan, be well. Take
See
care,
you.
everyone.